Hello, namaste, assalamu alaikum. How are you doing, my mindful community? We're back again with a soulful soul mender. I'd like to say that. We are going to be having her add on to the stream so that she can then introduce herself as well. But I would want to share a little bit of this piece of my heart of why Mentoring Hub and myself were eager to, to request our guests to become a part of our community in this sense of the word. Also, so the reason being that we all are aware that we deal with a lot of issues when it comes to our work life, our personal lives. And so when we speak about mindfully tackling those or mindfully, trying to find out a solution, we're usually at a loss. And then is when we need mentors, and we all need mentors in life, yes. And Sabrina Woodworth, our guest today, it's an honor to have her. She is the author and the founder of the concept of Work Lessons 101. She's just had a book that's come out as well. I have been a long time follower of her posts on LinkedIn, and I've had the privilege of um, knowing her through her posts, and how she entices very, very lively discussions online with people from across the globe. So it was when I first connected with her, it over the weeks I thought it would be best if we could bring her towards our community in Pakistan, and so that people would get to know her, get to know the brilliant work she's doing, and the difference that she's making to people's lives all around the globe. So we're going to add Sabrina to the stream just so that we can start. Hello,
Hello.
Sabrina.
Hello, everyone.
Thank you so much, Sabrina, again, for giving us time, giving Mentoring Hub time, and giving the community in South Asia time.
You're
It
welcome.
means a lot. I would want to know, is this the first time that you would be connecting with Pakistani community, or have you been doing it in the past as well?
Not through like a live show or a live stream, no, just through connections on LinkedIn and Instagram.
Okay, super. So we can be happy. So then we should feel much more honored. Why? Because we become the liaison, the bridge that brings you to our community in Pakistan. Thank you so much again. And so yes, as I was trying to give a little bit of intro, but because I would want you, Sabrina, to have our community know about you, your journey to who you are today.
Um, okay, so as you said, I'm the founder and author of Work Lessons 101. So it's a company that I founded a year ago, essentially to kind of fill in the gap between academics and university, to bridging the gap into starting a successful career and to help launch a successful career. A lot of things that are taught in school are far more theory based and far more, teaching you the hard skills to be able to execute a job, but they don't teach you a lot of the soft skills and how to sell your credentials to an employer, for example, or how to learn your organization's unwritten rules, how to, build a network, how to find effective mentors and where to look for. So I decided to start this organization to kind of fill that missing gap that I saw in the market and help aspiring professionals really launch successful careers right from the get-go. Because when you start your career, the biggest variable, one of the biggest variables you have, is your youth and time. And if you can utilize your youth and time to do things in more of an ideal order and to really set that foundation and build your professional credibility, you'll have a lot more options moving forward in your career. A lot more career opportunities will be presented to you. So that was the biggest reason. And I can do this because I've worked 14 years in the corporate 500 world, maneuvering the corporate ladder. I understand, I've worked right up to CEO level to entry level. So I understand the progression it takes in big organizations to, help yourself stand out. My organization has 60,000 employees. So how do you stand out in 60,000 employees, and what methods to use? So I coach a lot of my clients and, perfecting some of these big variables that they just don't get taught in school. And that's the biggest reason I wrote my book and started this organization.
Okay, that's great. So if I'm to really put this in a small snippet, I would say that this Sabrina that we see today has evolved because of the experiences that you had, Sabrina. Was it mostly those, or was there something else also?
No, just to teach what I've learned in my first 10 years of your career. So aspiring professionals or entry-level employees can understand where they're going and put actionable, correct, realistic goals to make them focus correctly and help them get where they want to go. That's the biggest one, is that I don't get me wrong, I was very fortunate, but I fumbled a bit. And I've seen many of my colleagues fumble and make unnecessary blunders. That's the whole concept of work lessons, is we share experience from the work environment to help aspiring professionals launch successful careers and reach their goals.
Super, sounds great. So if we're to delve down into our actual discussion today, what do you really feel about leadership? And because there's a common connotation about leaders being born, that we can't make them. There are all different sorts of concepts that we've had. I've experienced traveling around the world, speaking to mentors and trainers. What is Sabrina's take when we say leaders are born, or do you feel they're made? What is actually all of that?
I think they're made, if I had to do one or the other. I think there are people that have natural leadership abilities in their personality, and depending on the situation, that personality can ideally fit the need that situation presented. For example, if you think of World War II in England, you had Chamberlain and you had Winston Churchill, completely two different people. And when Churchill is labeled as fantastic, amazing leader, whereas Chamberlain isn't. I don't actually think it's a fair assessment, because they're completely different types of leaders. Chamberlain's very diplomatic, he is probably an excellent leader post-war, but a horrible leader during war, because Churchill's very action-based, reactive. He had a vision. He was very, very good under pressure. But would Churchill be the right leader in a time of diplomat where you need to, bridge relationships, you need to heal wounds? It was like Lincoln too in the Civil War, excellent during the Civil War, but was he the right leader post-Civil War? It's an argument for historians to really get into. Leadership is no one defined definition. But the one thing I think we can all agree is leaders bring the best out of people, and they can read rooms and they can adjust accordingly. So some of the most famous leaders, I would say, in history, at least in the last 100 years, aren't necessary by definition the leaders that would succeed in corporate America today, or what the world needs in maybe a political realm today. It really depends on the situation and their personality, and what I work really, really well under stress. But I kind of diddle daddle when I'm not. So I waste time. I'm not the most productive, and that's not the best environment that I work in. So leaders, at the end of the day, always serve. They don't think of themselves. They're not selfish. They're humble. They're kind. They're fair. They bring the best out of others. They create safe environments so their team can excel in that environment. And if you don't do any of those things and you claim to be a leader, you're not a leader, in my opinion, because at the end of the day, if you can't inherit, because most people inherit a team, they don't get to build a team. I would love to be like, oh, Sabrina, we want to do this new initiative. We want you to lead it. And we want you to pick 20 people to work for you. That never happens. That never happens. There's a huge problem. The organization's sinking. You're someone that's known to work under pressure, known to be, they're like, here, Sabrina, you get this team of 20 people. And they're all like, you might have superstars, A-list people, and then you might just have like people that are completely fumbling. And the people that are completely fumbling may not actually be D players or whatever. They might actually be secretly A to B players, but the person that they just worked for crumbled them. There are people, introverts, extroverts, that work in different environments and their skills and personalities excel. So a leader, a really great leader, I think, can come into a team and see these variables and bring them and artificially create these environments so these people can excel. At the same time, building that relationship, building that trust and loyalty amongst the team members. Because if the team as a whole does not care about each other, you're just a bunch of individuals working towards a task. A much more effective way to go is to bridge that together as a whole, because the whole is typically better than the one, just like a pack of wolves. You're stronger together than apart. And if you can build together and move to a common goal and a common vision under that leader. Sorry, wow. Did I just lose you? We're just flipped off.
I'm here.
But if you can do that, then you'll be more effective. And that's, to me, leadership. The leader brings people together, and they create a safe environment so those people can excel. If you don't feel safe, and you're shy and you're kind of an introverted person, are you going to speak up in a meeting when the overbearing type of person and super big extroverts talking and kind of like, are you going to interrupt them or come in with your like soft opinion, which could be the right opinion? A leader needs to control those excessive personalities who can be amazing people with amazing value, but don't have enough self-awareness to realize that their personality shuts half the team down. Because, like they just don't get it, that they actually influence the personality of the room. The leader, to me, is a facilitator in so many ways, but without like shutting everyone down. Because the big extrovert who is lively and has an amazing opinion, they might be unaware that they're shutting half the room down. But at the same time, the value they bring is there. So you don't want to shut them down to make them not talk. You need to teach and coach them that it's not just about them, and to teach that they're like, this was me. I got coached this way. I was the person who always shut everyone down, and I didn't realize I was even doing it. And that was never my intention. I'm a caring person, and I want people and I want to hear them, but I didn't realize that I intimidated people by being this kind of personality. I didn't realize that I was shutting a lot of the people who don't work in that type of environment that might need a silence to get their thought and then speak up. And by me talking and by me doing that, I was actually not creating the environment that they excelled in. I was creating the environment that I excelled in without compromising in any way. And the funny thing is I wasn't trying to be selfish, and I just was unaware. So this is where a leader and a coach and a mentor comes in and just breaks it down to me, a one-on-one, of course, in a trusted environment, and then creates an example. So the best way to correct is right after it happens. So as soon as that meeting ends, pull me aside and be like, Sabrina, this is what happened. Did you see it? No, I didn't see it. I completely missed it. So that's the coaching tips. And leaders coach, leaders tell you what you don't necessarily want to hear, but what you need to hear. And people who continue to progress in their career, listen. You don't need to be a leader, but you need to listen. A leader who doesn't listen isn't a leader, but every individual employee needs to at least listen. You don't necessarily need to take the advice, but you at least need to hear where it's coming from. Then go take it away and think about it, whether you're going to take it or not. But don't just discard it because it's not what you want to hear. If that's you, you'll plateau. You won't progress to the levels you could potentially progress with your talent. You can't get somewhere just by yourself. Especially in the corporate world, you need people to promote you, and you need people to open doors for you that you don't have access to. It's just how it works. That's the way the spider web. You need to connect to get to where you need to go to connect, travel the distance. And if you don't
Wow.
Do that, you may get lucky, but you don't want to rely on luck in your career. It's going to eventually run out. So if you have super ambitious goals, you need to work well with others. And if you can work under a great leader, you're lucky. I've maybe worked under a great leader once in my entire career. They're rare. They're super, super rare. So there's a lot of people who think they're leaders. They might be great managers and still good people to work for, but they're not like those leaders who like found organizations and who like build teams that are failing or on the brink of bankruptcy and bring them back. Those people are very rare, and that's because leadership serves others. They put themselves completely on the back burner. How many people are willing to do that? Like truly.
So true. And do you feel then the leadership qualities can be innate by birth? Yes, but then there are qualities that we can easily work at. These are not impossibles. Yeah, these are not things that. But as you said, we need recognition, the realization of missing and having those gaps around us, and it's only then when you actualize that you can actually get there, being that leader, because. In this part of the world, I would like to say, and especially within Pakistan, Sabrina, being the leader of the group or the team or a group of individuals is considered elite. So if there's a big boss, the big boss is most of the times, I'd say 85% around the country, a person who'd be that boss who'd have a person carry their laptop to their offices in the morning, and have people going around all around them. That's the culture here as well, the corporate culture here. And so we see that these so-called senior manager level, senior directors, these people are people who are not really, getting into the stream of sitting with their team or discussing, or as you said, being the person who would listen.
But were they ever that person?
Come again?
Were they ever that person? Did they work their way up, or were they just put in it?
Now, usually what happens is that what we see as a culture here is most of the companies and corporations that are magnanimous in sizes, besides the multinationals, are usually people who have been placed there as sons and daughters who've been following. It's like a monarchy being
so they
in
don't
a
know
business.
they don't actually know what you do. Probably.
Yes. So
they don't have any understanding of the daily operations. Yeah.
No.
We have that to some degree in North America, especially family-run companies or companies that aren't public, because there's like gigantic corporations that are private, that are family-run. You have a couple big ones in the energy and construction industry. So those totem poles. But again, because it's North America where there's a different expectation from work, especially the younger generations, like the millennials and the Gen Zs don't settle typically for undesirable work because we've been given so much privilege that we don't have the concept of settling for anything different. I know people call it entitlement. I hate that word because it's actually not an entitlement. Like if everywhere in Pakistan, everywhere in the world could have a standard of living, just consider it that you get promoted based on the merit of your character and the results of your work. Just imagine if that was across the entire world. Isn't that correct? Isn't that the right way to be moving? That these hierarchy-based, monarchy-based, power-based BS gets thrown out the door. Like that's where it's like, no, that's the right way. So I don't want to call these young people, because I'm considered part of this group, entitled. That is the right. The employer should want me to work for you if I'm a good employee. Like they should encourage me speaking up because my ideas will bring them money potentially. If these closed out systems and these family run and who gets you up the ladder, which by the way still very much exists all around the world. It's just hidden here. It's like where in Pakistan it's out in the open, which there's good and bad in that. Here it's completely hidden. You're like, how did that person get up They don't do anything, and they have never brought, like, it happens all the time. It's just never spoken of. It's like kind of like an unwritten rules, what I call it, like the off limit people. There's tons of that's what I call them, because they're not necessarily family, because it's a big public corporation, but there's like strings internally that, like, buddies and families that are connected. It happens all the time. It's just very hidden. So you kind of need to be in the loop to understand how all those people got to where they are. So sometimes it saves you time, but unfortunately in these cultures where you're put, like, it's who you know, so you haven't earned it. Unfortunately, these people don't recognize that they haven't earned it. And they're actually completely not qualified to be in the role they are, because they haven't earned it and they haven't done any of the work. And they wonder why these organizations don't do well. Because they're run by people that don't have a clue what they're doing, and they're not actual leaders. Anybody who makes an assistant carry their laptop to their office isn't a leader. And so if people are watching this right now and they want to, like, shun me as some woman who doesn't have, no, you're pissed off because I'm calling you out. You're pissed off because I'm calling you on crap. You shouldn't be treating people like that. I have assistants that work for, like, senior vice presidents that make millions of dollars that don't treat their assistants that way here. That is completely unacceptable. The whole concept of, I picked his dry cleaning, that doesn't happen anymore.
No, and you know, which is why there are pockets and there are groups, and which is and where our mindful network comes in, and that we're trying to propagate the same kind of culture where all of this should be not acceptable, not really acceptable. And it's only when, you know, people, us as people and as community would start speaking for it, as you said in the beginning. You know, we don't like to speak.
Well, there's power in numbers, and you need to, unfortunately, get government on board, because the labor laws, like Canada has extremely strict labor laws. I have a ton of rights as an employee. And also, like, with COVID, if I get laid off, my severance package, and, like, these are all connected to labor right laws. Like, my friends in India, they could get laid off tomorrow. They've worked for a company, say, for 15 years and get nothing. And I'm like, and it tends to happen, yes, in countries that don't have the labor laws, but also countries with huge populations. And the organizations have taken advantage of this, because you're no longer rare in their eyes. Where I'm trying to explain to organizations and work with organizations is that, no, good people are rare. People in general, there's 7 billion people in the world. We're obviously not rare, but getting the right people with the right skills at the right time to drive your business to be successful is not easy. And the fact that you treat a seat as a seat and not a person is your problem. It starts right there. That's your foundation. If you say you value teamwork as an organization and you treat people like that, you're a hypocrite. You don't. It's funny, as you said, recognition and a little bit of mentorship and a little bit of coaching and a little bit of value and fulfillment in your work drives motivation and it's inspiration out of people. I remember working in Mongolia, and we had like 72 different cultures at site. So talk about a mishmash of people and different beliefs and different religions, different structures, yet we work so well as a team. It's because this is the greatest leader I've ever worked for. So this is what a team with a great leader could accomplish. We were like a month to 3 months behind schedule, and we hit schedule. And we all worked 16 to 18-hour days for this guy, but it never felt like it. Not one day did it feel like I was working those hours, because he empowered me. He gave me decision authority over my scope and my responsibility. Everyone knew it was mine, but everybody owned something. Everybody was accountable, and he didn't babysit. He guided and coached, like, because I didn't know what I was doing sometimes. So I would run to him. There was complete trust, and I ran to him. He would help me, and then I would go. I wanted to succeed, to please him. I wanted him to think highly of me because I cared about his opinion, not because it was going to get me a promotion. I cared about his opinion because he was a person of value, and he empowered me, and there was this dynamic, and he did it with the entire team. And then he made us care about each other, because if one variable, if one system didn't get turned over on time, the whole team failed. It doesn't matter if one person does, like, so if you think, well, I did it, it doesn't matter. The client only sees the team, only sees the organization. They don't see the systems within that organization. So if I finished early, but Dave over there was not going to hit because he had like problems that you couldn't foresee, then me and my team ran, instead of going to the bar and having a beer because our shift was down, we ran over to help them. And that's what a team does. Is a team recognizes that their own individual contribution is void if we don't succeed together, if not everybody, and then not everyone's equal. Like at the end of the day, like we have different skills is what I mean. Like there will be people who are more talented and better at what they do. And if that individual who's super talented decides to keep their talent to themselves, what a shame. What a shame, because you just missed an amazing opportunity to network yourself out there, to build a relationship. So when I went over and helped Dave, do you think Dave forgot that? Dave has a set of skills that I don't have. I remember when a pump just broke and I had no idea why, because I'm not a mechanical engineer. I understand like a process, but different type of engineer. And I remember like getting people on the phone and like people dropping what they were doing right now to come help me. That's how you hit hard schedules. That's how you become a leader, is that it's not about the tasks, not about the responsibility. It's about the people wanting to drop what they're doing, which could get them in trouble with their boss, to come help you. And you never, ever forgetting that they did that for you. You never forget that. As you go up the totem pole, you never forget where you came from. That's why I asked right away, did your bosses work their way in? Because the bosses who've worked their way in, not the good bosses and the good managers and the good leaders, because I don't want to like summarize, a great manager can be just as effective as a leader, but don't want to be, because some people, like I have a 1-year-old son, I'm not willing to drop what I'm doing in my life to fly to Russia to work with $1 billion client. The leader of a project needs to be willing to do that. So I don't actually necessarily consider myself that leader I'm talking about, because I'm not willing to sacrifice my life for that. So I'm willing to work for those leaders. I want to work for those leaders, and I'll do a damn well good job. But I've walked away from that executive route because of the sacrifice that goes into it. I'm not willing to personally make it. But that's me, and that's a self-aware, conscious decision. But the people who have gone up there, who've come from the ranks, who've made it because of integrity, talent, hard work, sacrifice, they don't tend to forget that they were once you and what it takes to become them. And the people who do all that and who get up there and forget, they just lost a wicked opportunity to inspire their team. Because when I can relate to the person giving me orders, there's a connection, like kind of an unwritten connection that's just made indirectly there. And if you forget where you come from and you forget what it's like to be like, have a young family, corporate job, ambitious goals, if you forget that, you just lost an amazing opportunity to connect with your team. And as you said, the personal connection makes you work harder, because you don't actually want to let that person down. It's not about the organization. An organization is the person who pays you. And the big companies, you don't necessarily are buddies with the CEO. You don't understand what goes into their decisions because you're so far removed from it. So it comes down to those middle managers or middle leaders to get me. And if that, the organizations I worked with, that's the level that they have miserably failed to promote correctly. Generally, high ups are pretty good. And then you have these but that middle is where a lot of talent gets weeded out, and the big organizations, really bad leaders, bad managers have a place to hide because it's, they're so big, they can hide. And that's unfortunately where that drives so many good employees to another company, is because, again, in North America too, people aren't willing, maybe in COVID right now, because unemployment's so high, people are settling for undesirable work situations, but they're already putting a plan to get the hell out. They're either applying for work behind your back, or as soon as things recover, they're out the door. And the thing, when you lose that, all that intellectual property and talent about the company goes with them. Because disgruntled employees don't mentor a successor.
They won't. Yes, that's so true. You've just I would want to add this one thing. When you said that it's because these people realize how people here work, that they've made their companies follow a certain monarch style. I would also like to mention the multinationals, Sabrina, that have come down to Pakistan, and there's so many multinationals that work here that have corrective international standards. But you'd be amazed if you would know how internally they work in Pakistan, because they work in a very similar manner, having similar issues to the other style that I told you about, which is shocking for people who have just begun their careers, because they think they're getting into a job with a big international brand where they think they're going to be tackling them the international way, when they know how to tackle the Pakistani employment market, and they do similar. So yeah, so that
Imagine
opens.
being a new grad, having all this energy and all these ideas, walking into this major, awesome organization that they think they are, and then realize no matter how hard
Yes.
they work, what they change, how much money they save won't matter.
No.
What's the
Yes.
point? What's the
No.
point in trying? You're going to try to get out of your country is what you're going to do. It has nothing to do
This is
about your,
exactly this is exactly what's been happening, and so there's a skill drain, there's a brain drain within the economy when we see all of these brilliant graduates, brilliant people, scholarship holders just flying off. So yeah.
yeah, your
So
best,
if I'm
your most talented are leaving. It's
yes.
happening here in Vancouver, not because of that type of stuff, but because real estate and the cost of living is so high. Because the
Okay.
international money has come here, like the rich international money has come to Vancouver, that it's driven out the
Oh,
Canadians.
oh,
They can't afford an average house where I live is $1.5 million.
oh my
it,
God.
it
Good
is
Lord.
like 15 times what your average salary is. So you just can't afford it. So they're going to Calgary, they're going to other parts of Canada that's much more affordable. So
Um,
imagine you have a spouse that stays home with your kids and it's just you, and then you have a mortgage that's 15 times your salary. How are you ever going to save for an education for your kid, healthcare, for like you can't get by. And these are highly educated people, like professional engineers, lawyers. Like these are not people who like just work minimum wage jobs. Like they don't only young people work minimum wage jobs now, because as soon as they get to like the age 25 they have to leave because now they maybe met someone, want a kid, and they can't settle for $10 an hour. Not like that's where the international, because like when I worked in Mongolia, a lot of the culture is like,
yes.
Spring, you're so rich, because they're thinking of my salary based on their country they live in. So say the Philippines,
Yes.
which several of my friends said, oh my God, you must live like a king in Canada. I'm like, no, you live in a bigger house in the Philippines than I do in Vancouver. I don't even own a house in Vancouver. I live in a townhouse. I share walls because I can't afford a house. So, and they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, it's all like my salary in the Philippines. Yes, I could live like a king. But
Yes.
my salary in Canada is actually less humble than yours. And that was like an
I
eye opener for them. So it's not just about educating the Western world about the other side of the world. It's also the other way around, because my friends in the Philippines, for example, in this exact story, thought I am extremely privileged. So living in Mongolia for a year and a half was a life changing, because it was the first time I lived in a country without infrastructure, like clean water, and like, it was like an eye opener for me. I had no idea how spoiled I was being in Canada. Like I've never in my entire life had a cold shower. Like, can you believe it? I've never in my entire life till I went to Mongolia didn't have hot water or access to hot water. Like I couldn't believe it, how naive I was and stupid. Like how like it was like for 8 weeks, my first 8 weeks in Mongolia, I showered every day in ice cold water, because we didn't have the infrastructure and we couldn't spend the energy we had to put the energy in the grid to other things that were more critical to schedule. So they cut back the heater generators for the water. And so like, I was kind of like, what? Like, and the water wasn't clean. Like the water that I put out of the tap was like dirty brown. And I was like, so I had to like wash my hair with like bottled water in like a kettle, and I had to heat it up in a kettle. And I was like, so this is like some spoiled Canadian kid. I was like in my 20s and I come to Mongolia. It's a beautiful country, and I adapted and changed, but like this is how entitled, like when I say the word, I don't like using the word entitled, but this is like, it taught me the difference between a privilege and a right. In Canada, I'm born with a lot of privilege. I believe everybody should have right. All women should have rights to their body. I don't believe in arranged marriage. I think everybody has the right for choice, the right for a democracy to vote for their political leaders. That's what I define as a right. And then a privilege is like access to free education, free healthcare, like a tax system that that helps you succeed in life. Those are privileges that not everyone in the world gets. And I never really recognized, like down to hot water, that maybe just being born in Canada got access to that. I did nothing to earn it. I just got given it. And I think that's where people in the Western world need to understand that.
This changed you, Mongolia changed you as a person?
Oh yeah, the first thing I came back to Canada, I went into my closet and got rid of 7 garbage bags of clothes. That's how access that I had, because it collects over the years. In Mongolia, I lived on 2 outfits. I had 2 outfits. That's it. That's all I needed, because it was safety restrictions, PPE. That's 2. And I still had a maid at site, so I still had this privilege. But they would wash it, so I had 2 outfits, and that's all I lived on for 1.5 years. So when I came home, it was like I simplified my life, because what a lot of people don't understand in poorer countries is the struggle that comes with money. I know this, like, again, but it clutters you and it creates an anxiety in you, and it creates like this chaos to some degree. And living a simplified life or a minimalist life, and I mean this in a very positive way and not a negative sounding way, it frees you in so many ways, not caring about what type of car you drive, because there is so much keeping up with the Joneses in Western culture that it wastes so much time, so much energy, creates so much depression, anxiety. It's all self-made. That's like the whole concept of first world problems, but they are real, like this, because they don't know any better. You're born into the society you're born in with what you're giving. Because I lived 1.5 years in a poorer country, it opened my eyes to recognize the difference between a right and a privilege. But if I never went through that experience, I may not know that.
Yeah, you wouldn't have known.
It wouldn't have freed me from this concept that I was raised in. And it's not that you're just not taught any differently. So this is where the world needs to globalize. The world needs to listen to each other. Because what I learned in Mongolia, so my operators that worked for me had no technical ability. Like literally 2 years earlier, they were herding sheep with no technology. So they had no concept of safety, no concept, but this was my job. I needed to teach and coach them. And everyone's like, wow, your operators are useless. No, they're not. Because if anything ever happened to me in the middle of the Gobi Desert, they will help me survive, because I have no concept how to cook without electricity. I have no concept how to survive without privilege. I have no way of surviving in the desert that has no vegetation. They've been doing it for thousands of years. So don't ever tell me they're stupid, because they're not. They're not. If we had a global flare in the world and we lost our satellites, Western culture would crumble. Mongolia, they've been doing it for thousands of years. They know how to survive. So when it comes down to the bare necessities of the human spirit, like shelter, food, they got it. Western culture has complicated things. It has made it much more efficient, but it's also made us forget our past and forget the bare necessities of our ancestors. And I'm talking like 1,000 years ago, but we've forgotten. I have no clue how to live in the wilderness. I'm a city kid. Like, yeah, I can like program my phone and I can talk to you while I'm doing this and that and that. But if you take that all away, like, I don't know how a printer works. I don't know how my wastewater system for my city works. I have no idea. I don't know how I get hot water. I do know how I get hot water. That's a bad example. But, like, a lot of people don't understand how the infrastructure of their culture works. And so when I was in Mongolia, these people do. And was an eye-opener for me, because intelligence is relevant to the environment you're in. I'm stuck in, like, if my Jeep broke down in the middle of the Gobi Desert and I needed to find my way back to site, without a GPS, I would have died, period. Every direction looks the same in the desert, but yet my driver knew. He knew if he went this way, he would get to sight. And I'm like, how do you know that? Like the stars? Like, how do you know that? But yet people back in the 1400s sailed the oceans by looking at this. Like, again, intelligence is relevant. Like, if I was put in a life or death situation in the desert, I don't know if I would succeed. But yet my driver would. So why would you judge them? Why would you think lower of them because of the passport you carry? They weren't given access to a world-class education like I was. But if they were, maybe they'd be better than me. Maybe they'd be ahead of me. So if we equalize the playing field, if we just equalize the playing field, where all gender, religion, and it was all treated at a base, people aren't that different. And I think you need to recognize that the reason that many people believe what they believe in is because they were born and raised in it.
Yes.
And that's it. Like, I learned so much being in Mongolia. Mongolia believes in certain freedoms that just blew my mind. Like how women could be just very free there. Like, you know, like in North America, it's still kind of like Catholic and Christian. And so like a woman gets like judged, for example, on how many like people they've dated. In Mongolia, they don't. It's like kind of a free, they don't expect people to marry and to partner off and raise kids. The grandparents tend to raise the kids. And so I was kind of like, what? And I like realized that I kind of judged the women for being promiscuous. And I'm kind of like, and then I grew while I was there. And I'm kind of like, I only think that because I was raised to think that. Why is it okay for men but not women? And then I realized I was like, wow, that was kind of like indirectly taught by my society norms. There's nothing wrong with it. These people aren't, this woman's not hurting me in any way. Why do I care? And that's where it's like these civil rights and these arguments about religion, gay rights, this, that, you're like, how does it impact my life? It doesn't. I was taught by either my parents or the culture I lived in, right and wrong, and they're subjective.
Yes.
And that's what Mongolia taught me. Mongolia taught me to just be a little bit more accepting of people and concentrate on myself.
Beautiful.
I think if people just, sorry, go ahead.
I think, Sabrina, I think with your son, you're going to be a different person altogether. I can sense that with your tone and your concept and your perspectives, which is beautiful. Who do you think, Sabrina, you'd want to highlight as your mentors in life? People you actually remember. One of your bosses you spoke about.
Yeah, are there any more from my work? My parents. My parents and my big brother. My parents.
Wow.
My parents, especially my mother, I need both my mom and dad. They serve different purposes in my life. Like, obviously, they loved me unconditionally, and they gave me that strength because as a parent now, as a new parent, I understand it. I get it. Like, if you don't have the parents in your life, like, my parents would die for me. Like, there is no one in life, I think, that loves you more than your parents. And like good parents. I don't think there will ever be someone that loves my son and my husband will love my son more than me because I'm willing to give everything for him. And if you're born into that is like the best foundation ever because like I've met kids who don't have that and they're not whole. Like they'll never be, they don't get it. They can't get it. Like if you meet people who haven't met people who love them this much, it doesn't teach you how to love. It doesn't teach you how to grow. It's a safety net that you, like, I can't even explain it. Like because I have a friend that was horribly abused growing up and I don't want to talk too much about it because he's confided in some very private things. People are like, well, you just need to decide to be, no, when you've gone through really bad stuff like that from the people who are supposed to give you life and to give you love, I can't understand. Like I will never understand it because I've never gone through it, but I can try to listen. And he's trying, like he's tried so hard to heal, but it's this hole, it's this void in you. And my parents, I never realized I had a girlfriend who comes from a lot of money overseas, but she was raised in Canada. and she's boarding school, top schools. Anyway, she got beaten up by her boyfriend when she was younger, and hospitalized. So she calls me up. So I run to the hospital, and I'm like, we're talking. She's going to physically recover. I'm more worried about mentally at this point. And I said, okay, when's your mom coming? She hadn't even called her. And I'm like, what? Wow. If someone beat the crap out of me, the first person I would have called was my mother. The second would have been my big brother. The third would have been my father. And then a whole series of cousins, friends. And I can assure you that guy would be in the hospital beside me. And that's just, you don't hit women. And, well, you don't hit anyone. And you just don't do that. And the fact that she didn't have enough security with her mom because she was living with this guy, and her mom has these very conservative beliefs. It took me 3 days to convince her that her mom would come, and her mom did come, and it ended up making the relationship a lot better. But my whole point here is that when you don't have that mentorship and that love and that understanding and acceptance of who you are right from the get-go, it potentially creates these environments. My parents, I remember a couple times I got into trouble as a teenager, just typical stuff, going to parties that I wasn't allowed to go, but I went anyway, and I had friends lie and cover up for me. And I remember one that I got kind of stuck at, where I didn't have a ride. Okay. So I called my mother, and I was like, I'm going to be so grounded. I'm dead. I lied. She didn't actually ground me. And now I get it as a parent. Because I was in trouble, had I called her and she grounded and punished me, I probably would have never done it again. But because she would have, but she saw the bigger picture. She got it. She's like, if Sabrina's ever, don't get me wrong, I got a lecture and I disappointed her, which is probably the worst punishment ever. But she didn't ground me. She didn't tell my father, who's much more conservative and who would have definitely grounded me. But she got it. She understood that there's certain things in life that kids just get into because it's a natural curiosity, and it's a natural thing to test your boundaries. And this is actually what makes you successful in your life, is this branching out. But unfortunately, when you're younger, you also don't have the experience. You can actually get yourself into really big trouble. So if you don't have that kind of guiding hand with your parents, you can really get into trouble. You could even get into really bad things where, this is where really serious accidents happen. And so my first mentorship was my parents, my mom and my dad. My dad gave me my competitive spirit and my thirst for ambition, because he's very much like that. I'm very much like my dad personality wise. And my mom gave me my compassion and my heart and my kindness. And I wasn't born with a conscience. I'm one of those people that was almost naturally selfish and naturally ambitious and competitive. So my dad and I really molded, but if I didn't have that, my mother literally corrected me. She never gave me an inch. She knew if she gave me an inch, I would take a mile. I was that type of person. And she never ever let me get away with nothing. I remember anytime I was remotely selfish, she was in there. No, you don't do that. You treat people that she always was, always. And around the age of 16, 17, it clicked. It finally clicked that the world's not about me. The world's what you make it. The world's about your relationships. And if I didn't have that, I think I'd be a CEO right now in corporate America, making all the wrong decisions for all the wrong reasons. I'd probably be much richer, financially, than I am now. But I don't think I'd be happy. And I don't think my true talent and true purpose would have been exposed. It had my mom not been on me constantly. So that was that. My big brother's the most laid back guy you'll ever meet. I call him Teflon Chad, because everything just rolls off him. And he was 5 years older than me. So I and we're similar, we're both athletes. And so, but because I'm the go, ambitious, go. I take 10 steps when he takes 100 steps to get somewhere. He kind of balanced me, and he kind of got through to me when he needed to. Because he was never someone to give his opinion till asked, I actually went and asked for his opinion. And when he did give them to me, I was dating this really bad guy once, just really selfish kind of guy. And I was really unhappy, and I was thinking of ending it. And I went to my brother, and I remember his answer. I said, "Oh, what do you think about this guy? Do you think there's a future?" And he just looks at me and he goes, Sabrina, I don't see a future. He's stupid and he's selfish. And that is like the worst combination. And I'll never forget that answer because it's so true. Selfish and stupid are horrible because they have no self-awareness, so they don't even realize they're selfish, and they'll never, ever, ever change because they don't have the self-awareness and the intelligence to change. They don't actually have the ability to do it. Some people can't be helped because they simply have these like blockers on their brain unless they have a massive situation that drives it. Like my situation in Mongolia kind of forced a side of me out because I had no alternative. I had no escape or disillusion. My brother was kind of like that sounding board and that mentor. And to this day is my best friend, and his 2 kids I just adore. And his wife's awesome. Like his wife was one of my bridesmaids at my wedding. So I'm very close to them. And I think family can be the best mentors if that family member can disengage from being a family member. Like my mother to this day is a mentor because my mother understands that I'm a person and an adult and a mother myself, and I make my own decisions. There was a transition in my early 20s where she went from being a mom, like the person who told me what to do, to being a friend and a guidance. My dad eventually got there, but he was harder for him. He had a harder time letting go of his little girl, which makes sense. And especially because I was his twin, right? Like I was his mini me. So I think there was a different type of, I was like a daddy's girl till I was probably about 21 years old. And then I kind of transitioned into this headstrong person that didn't listen to my dad anymore because my dad means well, but and I don't want to paint him in a light. He's a wonderful person. Parents don't always know what's best for you. Parents have this bubble, and sometimes you pop it as a kid. And if you go into a direction that they don't see for you, it's hard for them to get on board. And their intentions are always in the right place. Generally, they love and fear for you. And now that I'm a mother, I get it. Like it's like letting my son run downhill, knowing he's going to fall. But he won't ever get better on his balance if I don't let him fall. So you're trying as a parent to create this semi-safe environment so your kid gets hurt, but not like hurts. Like the safe. So if you're born into an environment that doesn't have that safety net, it puts you in a different position. And I've met people, and it makes me understand where they're coming from. There's people who've been able to still be really good people, who's still been able to care for others and really evolve. And they're very strong people, very courageous, brave people. But then there's people who just can't do it. And they have gone on to either be closed off, narcissistic, created this, but understand where they're coming from. And that's where you cut your losses sometimes as people. Like that's why I ended up breaking up with this boyfriend, because he was just never going to change. And he was never going to appreciate the actual person I am and truly accept the person I am. Like I remember dating a guy who wanted me, once I became a mother, to stay home with the kid. And I believe women should have a right to make that decision and not judge for that decision. I think it's wonderful. You want to stay home with your child. My husband's actually staying home with our son now. He's a stay-at-home dad. And I'm so happy that he made that decision, because there's no one going to take care of my son better than his dad. That no daycare, no one, right? And so I'm grateful for that decision, but it's funny how he gets judged for it, because men are supposed to be the breadwinners and men are supposed to make money. And so it goes both ways. So women judge other women. Like, you're like this executive and now you're giving it all up to raise your kid. It's an honor it's an honor to raise your kid. I've decided to go back to work because I need it. For my balance and for my fulfillment in life. But it has made me appreciate my time with my son a lot more, because I don't only get a few hours during the week. But it's just, don't judge. You don't know what it's like for other people. And that's the best mentorship. So to answer your question, my parents, my brother, and then my mentor, Rick, at work has probably been the greatest mentors, and they've all served different purposes. So my advice to anyone watching this is to get multiple mentors, because one's never enough. And mentorship forms organically, so don't force it. I've been assigned many, many mentors at work, and many of them have been wonderful and have served, like helping me get a promotion. But those true mentors, those friends, those people who become family, those tend to happen organically, and they happen over time when trust and loyalty is built. Rick and I were in a situation in Mongolia where we were spending 16 to 18-hour days. So that relationship was sped along because the amount of time and the circumstance we were under. So within months, he was like family to me. Most relationships don't happen and progress that quickly. If you're in an office environment, you might spend an hour a day. So those could take 1 to 2 years to potentially form instead of months under my search situation. But sometimes you just meet people that are like your best friends overnight. My maid of honor at my wedding, my best friend, we met at work and we clicked immediately. We're similar people. We've grown to be different people now, but
I'm sure.
Sometimes, well, and it's an honor to grow, right? Some people don't get to live out their future. You know, like some people aren't that lucky. So, yeah. So I think sometimes
whilst you were progressing into this being a writer and author, I understand how your own life's experiences have transpired this Sabrina that we know now, with you and your concepts and the real life experiences that you so rightly say they're not taught in school, and that you learn from your own life patterns and others' life patterns. Now that you are an author, giving to people, giving back to people in such a magnanimous manner, Sabrina, who do you think has driven you to become this giving? Was it because of all of your mentors, or was it something you had innate?
I think my mother had a lot to do with it, based on what I just said. I remember this particular conversation I had with my dad. So I always wanted to be a writer growing up. It was like one of those like passions, but more fiction writing. I was into when I was younger, in poetry. And I remember having all these like dark ideas, like dramas. And I remember my dad just saying, like, I was pitching an idea to my dad, and he goes, Sabrina, why don't you just always think that the contribution, he said it differently, but I was going to sum it up. Contribution you give to the world should always have the purpose of making the world better. So if you're going to go down a negative route, you need to think about how to teach the world to see it through that person's eyes. Like it needs to serve a purpose and serve a teaching purpose, because then people won't gravitate to it. You know, he's seen it from a salesman's point of view, but he goes, it kind of really hit me hard, because I was like, if you're going to like work and put all this time into, say, writing a book, and it could just be a personal goal, and that's all you ever want. My book kind of just started as a personal goal, and a personal achievement, but I decided to do it in a way to show my contribution, because at work I felt like I wasn't mentoring enough, because I was in management now and I didn't have that day-to-day operation. And so it was kind of like this career crossroads where it all started in. And that's where I remember that conversation I had with my dad, because I was kind of like, well, if I'm going to write a book, it needs to serve a void and it needs to serve a purpose. And that's it. Like, so over 1 year, like it's a really thick book, right? So when I started my mat leave with my son in Canada, you get a year to 18 months. So I took a year, and I decided at the start of my mat leave, after I recovered from my cesarean, that I was like, I'm going to write a little bit every day during his naps, and set up my social media platforms, and that's it. And then eventually I wrote a book. So to kind of also teach a separate point, baby steps add to a leap. So if you're a mom or a dad or someone who doesn't know how to find the time, find half an hour a day. So I did it when my son napped. And the thing with little kids is they go to bed early. So you have a couple hours, and obviously take the time. Don't burn out, okay? But just break it down. And if you want to write a book, find half an hour during the week. So 2.5 hours to 3 hours during the week. And then maybe find 2 hours on the weekend and do it over a year. You'll write a book. And I needed another year to edit it, but you at least have it on. You don't do anything today, you're going to have nothing in a year from now. So find out what's realistic and sustainable for you, and then dedicate and be consistent.
Super. Wow.
Sorry, I just got a drink.
Yeah, no worries about that. You've covered so much, and I'm so happy we're doing this conversation. Why? Because you're also somebody who's such an inspiration to females who are sitting at home thinking they're not somebody who could do anything really magnanimous in their life, or probably do something that is significant for their children or otherwise. So, you shared a very, very original, I'd say, a very genuine feedback and comments along with your discussion. So thank you so much about, for being so clear with your concepts and your perspectives. Because so many of these, the reason that I really wanted to connect was the fact that I can feel now, because I'm a daughter of the soil from Pakistan, but I was not born here, I was not educated here, and so I came back to Pakistan after several years. It's just been fairly 18, 20 years since I've been back in the country. But I know the reason that I wanted to stay back was the fact that I wanted to fill those gaps where, as you said, you see gaps within your society and you wanted to make that change and act as that change agent. So I hear you, and I feel all of these women who would be watching our program and listening to you are going to be super, super anxious of how they can get their hands on Work Lessons 101. That's something that I would want really to request you to start working at, because me being a follower of a keen follower of your LinkedIn posts, I would like to say here, and me myself feeling so connected, although, like you said, I've been privileged. I feel, yes, now that you made me realize that, I've traveled the world, met so many different people, been educated abroad. It gave me just a different perspective when I came back to my own country. So having that privilege at hand, I still feel, your book is going to add so many new perspectives to us here as a community. So I would want to request if you could, probably
Well, do
work
you have your own
on a platform.
Pakistan Amazon site?
We do have sites that are available where people can order
No,
from,
because
but
everyone
we
in the
don't.
world, as long as you don't have like restrictions on the government, can get the ebook. So it is an ebook on
Yeah.
Kindle app. So
Wow.
so go to
Wow.
the country of Amazon, okay, guys. I'm learning this
Okay.
Amazon thing, and there's also, if you go to .com, it's on .com, and it's on Kindle. So the print
Okay.
version is expensive. By I think by
Okay.
certain countries' standards and what the standard paycheck is there. Like I know my friends in India can't really afford the printable copy, and I can't do anything about that price
So
because
the
it costs money to print it, and Amazon sets that price. So I can't do anything about that. But
of
the
course.
ebook
Yes.
has
Yes.
been
Yeah.
priced based on the country. So if you just go to Amazon and
Oh.
type in Work Lessons 101, what they don't teach you in school. That's the title
Uh-huh.
of the book. So, or just Work Lessons 101. It should come up. There's nothing else named that. The ebook can be downloaded on Kindle. You can pay for it, but I also put it in Kindle
Wow.
Unlimited. So if you're an Amazon Prime member,
Wow.
you get those for free. So it's based on the
Wow.
library, Kindle Unlimited. So I tried to do it that everyone could have access to the book. But
That's
the
great.
ebook, you can
Yeah.
download it right to your tablet, right to your computer, right to your phone. So
Wow.
at least you have access to the knowledge of it. So that is available now. So they can go check that out. For
Wow.
women
That's pretty
specifically,
knowledgeable.
because I know like women in North America are still struggling for equal rights. So I can only imagine what it's like in other parts of the world. Um,
Yeah.
the biggest thing is everyone has a purpose. And if you feel like if you're at home raising your kids, well, I'm going to be the first person to tell you how hard that is because, oh my God, my son's 15 months old. And when my husband's like, I have him by myself, I have to watch him like a hawk. There's no minute for yourself. And so
Yes.
it is a great sacrifice. Don't get me wrong. I love it. And I know you love it, but not every minute of every day do you need to love it. And that is like completely unrealistic. You're human and you have your own needs. So the fact that you're giving those up to raise your children is an honor. And I really hope your husband respects that and people in your culture respect that because I know firsthand
Totally.
how hard it is. And it is hard. I know not every day is hard, but I know some days my son just wakes up and he's growing and he's hungry and there's just no pleasing the little guy. And I
I
love him to
know.
death and I'll do anything for him. But if he catches me on a day that I didn't sleep well, or it's just a hard day and it's going to be a hard day. And it's an honor to be a stay-at-home mom. You're doing the most important job. So that is Kudos to
Wow.
you. Okay. I get it. Kudos to you. And then if you have these ambitious professional goals on top of being a mom, you're just going to need
Yes.
to create some structure in your life. And it's very hard when your kids are little. So don't be too hard on yourself. So kids
Yeah.
nap. I know you have your household, you got to clean. Da, 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 da. So if you can just find a half an hour a day, and to start off, if you can't get if you're a writer, for example, and you can't figure out any inspiration to write, then just do mind exercises. Just meditate and free your mind. Like breathe, do something, go for a run, do whatever it is that it works for you to give
Space.
you
Yeah.
that alone time. Don't give that time to your husband, give it to yourself, honor yourself, because the worst thing in the world you'll do is it'll compound over time, and then you'll start impacting what type of mom you are and what type of person you are. And once you start getting into that negative place, it's really hard to get out of it. So you got to take that time for yourself. And then once you kind of start to feel a little bit more comfortable in your own skin, start to branch out small. Like, as I said, I only started writing 100 words a day during a half an hour here and there. And then I became a
Wow.
better writer. I became better. I structured my ideas quicker. And then over time, what I could do in a 2-hour period now is not
Wow.
where I was a year ago. So you do get better, but it's that
Wow.
consistency. So you got to figure out and create a sustainable method. Like, people go out too fast. Like, people are like, I'm going to put 3 hours a day, and then they can't do that every day. And then they fail, and then they stop. Don't do
Yes.
that. Don't do that. Start out the opposite. Start half an hour, then work to an hour. Like, start baby. Don't go the other way, because you're going to,
Super
that's
advice.
the thing with goals is they need to be realistic and sustainable. And if you don't do that right from the get-go, you're not going to succeed. And you didn't actually fail. You just didn't pick realistic goals. And sometimes that takes trial and error and you refining it. But the biggest thing is doing nothing and not doing anything and feeling trapped. I think that's like that helpless feeling where you feel trapped. And I know some women kind of sometimes are trapped. They're not in good marriages, and they're not in a family that supports them, and then they have kids, and so you need to just take control of what you have control of. And if you are home every day by yourself with your kids, then you can control what your kids do to some degree, and you control what
Yeah.
they learn and what they teach. So if you
Wow.
are sick of being a woman in a culture that does not respect women, and you have sons, teach them to respect women. Don't let them grow up to be the problem, be the solution. Raise a kid that respects you. And it's very hard if daddy doesn't respect you, because kids observe more than they listen.
Yes.
But don't give up. Try to teach as much as you can to those kids, because I always say, like, I'm a feminist, obviously, but I don't even like that word because of the negativity that comes with it. I believe in equal rights. That's what I believe in. And I have a husband that respects this, and I'm going to raise a son that respects this. But I also have a father and a brother that respects this. So I grew up in a different situation. So my advice to
Yeah.
you is not necessarily the best advice, because I have a hard time relating to your situation. But I think you need to just concentrate on what you do have control in. Because if you concentrate
Yes.
what's out of your control, it creates this environment that's not healthy. So concentrate on what you have control in and work from there. But the
Wow.
biggest thing is, we need men to believe in equal rights. Nothing will ever change in this world if we can't get men to believe that and to understand the reason to believe that. Diverse teams, women, men, like, it's been proven over and over and over again that organizations without a diverse workforce outperform the ones who don't.
So true.
Over and
So
over and over again. And again, that's why be the
true.
example. If you believe in equal rights, then you damn well treat people with equal rights. Live and breathe your beliefs. That's what you can control. If you believe kindness is the ultimate superpower, then be kind. And you know what? The test is when you meet a dick, when someone who's a jerk. If you can be kind to them, you got it.
Yeah.
You're living your core beliefs. And when you live to your core
Wow.
beliefs, it creates this happiness and fulfillment within you. It's healthy. I
So
don't
beautiful.
care. Like, I don't let anyone treat me bad, but I don't try to cure them either. I just treat them with kindness. And sometimes that's just like, oh,
Wow.
thank you for your time. I'm going to go now. I had a client last week that I refused to work with. And
Wow.
it wasn't because she couldn't pay me. She could. We weren't a fit. I
Wow.
could help her. I didn't feel I could help her. And I'm not going to get into it, but sometimes it's sticking to your beliefs. If you have someone that I want to help people climb the corporate ladder and climb their success, but I'll only do it through ethical means and my beliefs. I will not teach them the other side of the corporate world that exists and will get you there, but it won't get you there and keep you there. I have seen so many organization leaders get replaced overnight because they didn't have the proper support group underneath them, because they rose to power the bad way, screwing people over, taking credit for other people's work. Yeah, you can do that. You can climb the top, and it works. I've seen it. I've seen people get to the top doing that. I have, over and over and over again.
Yes.
That's your method. That's great. You have no friends. No one respects you. Like, no one respects the kiss up. I have friends that have kissed their way up to higher levels in the organization, but one day the organization is going to be all your peers and no one's going to respect you. And that's when you're going to find yourself out the door. Yeah, it might take 20 years to get you out the door, and you collected that wonderful paycheck for 20 years, but it's not going to get you what you want, because most people who want to be at the top want power, legacy, and money.
Yes.
And it's not going to get you any one of those things, because you're going to get tossed at the door with no respect. So there goes your legacy. Your legacy's crap. And then power, there goes all your power, because at the end of the day, true power is people doing it because they want to do it for you. That's power. If you can just call people and they drop what they do to help you because you're in a bind, because you are a good person and you would do it for them, that's power. That is power. Knowledge is power. Relationships is power. You having a title and forcing it down people's throat is not power, because you need that title. As soon as I fire you and take away that title, you got nothing. You got no money, no legacy, no power. So you keep screwing people over. You keep taking credit. It is going to come back and bite you in the ass. I've seen people, the most powerful people in organizations, get tossed on their ass without even so much as a thank you. Because they deserve it. So, and again, like, people, it's hard for me to coach like someone who's 25 years old because this might not happen till they're 45 and they see the results of it. But I'm telling you right now, from someone who's experienced and seen it and over many, many times, and who's done tons of research for her book, who's interviewed CEOs to executives, dozens and dozens and dozens of leaders in the Fortune 500 world, it comes back. And if you're not respected, I don't know how you can think you have power if you're not respected. Respect is the best motivation. If someone respects you, they're going to help you. If they still might help you if they don't respect you, simply because they don't want to piss you off, but you're not going to get their best effort. You're going to get the minimum.
I truly can't thank you enough, Sabrina, for this insight that you've made me go back in my mind and tell myself again and again that this was the best decision that I made. Giving you that message, sending you that message in your inbox, because what I can relate to what you say. So as I said, when I was speaking to these other people on my team, and I told them about you initially, and I said, when I can connect to her, being across distance, such a huge distance, I feel every single woman who hears you and listens to your words is going to be able to connect with you. Sabrina, what are the before we wrap up, what are the qualities you want your son to have? I mean, you being this compassionate person that I can feel you're a person I feel who very strongly believes in whatever we give comes back magnified. Yes, just like me. And so what you feel should be the characters we should be working at as mothers to ensure probably giving our children that stable sort of and that thing, that brain wave, like you spoke about your mom giving you that solace, being a friend. What else do you think you've learned that we should be working on at with our children as moms, or that you would be working at with your son?
I want to empower my son to own and be accountable to his decisions. One of the worst things I've seen hold people back from happiness is that they're not accountable. They blame. So, and I've been there too. Like, I went and pursued an engineering degree, and I became a project manager now in the corporate world. And I remember I left engineering 8 years into my career because I didn't enjoy it. And I remember there was a small time where I kind of blamed my dad because I pursued engineering because of him. Not that I was semi-forced into taking an engineering. I was really good at math and science, and that's what would give me a secure job. And so that's what I did. And I remember kind of being like upset when I found out a few years into my career that I wasn't fulfilled being an engineer. And and like, I think when you're an adult, you have a bit of a period of time where you can blame your parents, but how does that help you? How is that going to make you happy for your future? You're not happy now, you know that. You can't change your past. You should reflect and learn from your past. And then when you've learned the lesson, you move on. It no longer serves you. So forgive yourself and move on, and forgive those who might have done you wrong. Like, my parents didn't do me wrong. They almost lost their house when they were in the early, like, a recession hit in the late 80s, early 90s in Canada, and like super educated people were losing their houses. And like, as a parent now, I get it. Like, you're just kind of like, you need your job as a parent is to protect your child and provide for your child. And if you can't do that, then you feel like a failure. And so my parents didn't want what happened to them because they didn't have an education and they had to go get one as adults. So that's kind of the environment my brother and I were raised in. And so I get why they kind of forced my brother and I to engineering, because they didn't want their kids to go through that. And that's part of being a parent. Unfortunately, part of being a parent is to teach resilience into your children. And so where I think a lot of people, especially in Western cultures, are going wrong is they're making it too easy for their kids. And so, like, a bit of resilience makes you successful in life, because you're going to fall, you're going to have setbacks, you're going to have obstacles, and you will fail, especially if your goals are super ambitious. You're chasing something and going for something that you have no experience in. Even a mentor can help you, but you're going to still fail along the way because you just don't have the knowledge and experience. That's how you gain it. You stumble, you get up. You get up with the lesson. You adjust. You do it. It's trial and error. You stumble, you do it, and every single bit you hit a step. You go up, 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 and that's how you do it. But you need resilience. So what's going on in the education system now is they're protecting kids too much, in my opinion. There's like my son's 15 months, like, he doesn't understand right and wrong yet. So I correct him, but you got like consistency. You need to use consistency here, because that's the only way it sinks in. But as they get older, if my son gets a D at school or fails something, I'm not going to go into the teacher and blame the teacher unless the teacher isn't teaching them well. There's a job there and accountability. But if my son was lazy and played video games and didn't do the work, then he doesn't get rewarded for the work. You don't get it. You get what you earned. You get what you work for. And part of that's a mindset change. So how I want to approach raising my son as he gets older is reward the important things. And getting an A is not important. The work going into the effort's important. Reward the effort. Okay, because the problem I got straight A's in school. The problem with rewarding the A, the one time I got a C, I remember my very first midterm in university, I got a C, and I felt like a failure. I didn't actually fail. I got a C. So I have to work harder. But if I don't establish the proper work ethic, I'm never going to get there. So reward the work. So if your kid keeps getting A's, say something like, "Oh, wow, you got an A. You must have worked really hard." Instead of go, "Oh, you're an A, you're really smart." Because the next time they get a B or a C, they're not going to think they're smart. It's all a mindset thing. So the biggest thing I want to teach my son is accountability. So if you treat people like crap and they end up hurting you or screwing you over in the future, your own actions cause that in a way. So don't just blame them. Understand what you could have done differently and take accountability for your own mistakes. Because if you don't take accountability, you just keep repeating your mistakes. And then you'll become this person who can't take feedback, isn't open-minded, is stagnant, won't improve. And if you can't do any of those things, how are you ever going to be happy? Because, like, we can talk about your career, but you spend a good chunk of your life at your career. So they're almost intertangled into this balance. But if you can't take accountability anywhere in your life, how can you be a good husband? How can you be a good father? How can you be a good friend? If you can't take any accountability, you're going to just be one of those people that people don't really want to spend any time with. And you're not going to create those good, rich friendships. They did like 100-year study at Harvard where they did like 3 or 4 generations. And they concluded that the happiest and healthiest people were the people with the richest relationships. Done. I know we didn't need a 100-year study to prove this. This should be common sense. But they proved it nevertheless for all us cynics in us that say, no, it's money, it's this, it's that. No, you need enough money to be able to have the necessities in life. But at that point, it's up to you what you value in your life. And I want to empower my son to be able to choose the best thing for his life. Don't do it because of me, because I'm going to still make mistakes as a parent because I've never been a parent before. So I'm going to make mistakes. And when my son does something that I don't agree with, that's going to be the ultimate test. But I'm sure I'm going to fail at some point and try to force my beliefs onto him. And it's his accountability as a person to be able to say, no, Mom, I want to go be an entertainer, even though it's super risky. I don't want to go pursue a degree. And and it's my job as a parent to listen and try to help. It's my job. If you raised a kid that's a lawyer, for example, and he's a great tax-paying citizen, yay! And you can brag to all your friends that they're such a success, but they're not happy and they're popping depression pills every night. I don't know about that. I worry about that. Like suicide's so on the rate, I think nowadays, and there's a lot of mental illness that goes undiagnosed. I think part of it's also overdiagnosis. So there's this balance, but a lot of it is people not being able to cope with reality and not being able to cope with accountability, and they have no resilience, and they got fed a load of lies, basically. It's not even their fault. They got fed a load of lies growing up that you get rewarded for participating, and you get rewarded and you're not accountable, that you get you don't even get grades. So you're like in grade 5 now. And you're like, you get all these things and you're catered to it. And in Canadian society, we're so privileged that you're given so many things that you don't even realize you're being given, that most of the world doesn't even get. And you're like, you get this, and you now all of a sudden you're 22 years old, you got a university degree, and no one told you how to write a resume. No one told you how to prep for an interview. No one told you how to sell your credentials to an employer. No one told you how to recover from failure. No one told you how to network. No one told you how to find effective mentors. No one told you any of this stuff. But society told you that you need to be successful and you need to go and build a career and you need to be a tax-paying citizen. But they gave you none of the actual practical tools to do it. So my job as a parent is to provide my son those practical tools, because no one else is doing it. And I don't even know if it's the responsibility of school to do it. I still think it's a balance. I think school is it's outdated. I understand you need to learn math and the basics, and absolutely the basics, but you need to start leveling the playing field. Like you need to start bringing in certain things like resilience. If a kid doesn't study for a test and fails it, then you fail them. You don't reward that behavior. It teaches a lesson in life. And this is what school needs to teach, is life lessons too. You do not reward. And that parent that goes in and fights the teacher for failing them, the school board needs to back the teachers, because you're just like, no, you're a bad parent. You might not be a bad parent, sir. That's really mean. You're not doing justification for your kids' behavior. And kids without accountability grow up to adults without accountability, and they don't believe they're in control of their own destiny. The majority of my clients don't realize that these two things control their destiny, and they can pull you down or rise you up. And if you're going to be a person of integrity and a person of kindness, you got one hand to help you up, and then use the other hand to help someone else up. Use the chain reaction. And if you can continue to pay it forward because you've been given it. So I've been given this wicked mentor in my life, this wicked mentor in my life. And if I choose not to mentor others, shame on me. Shame on me. I took, but didn't give. And if you do that in life, good for you. You're not going to have those people at your funeral. You're not going to have a legacy. You're not going to have these things. It's all going to be built off hypocrisy and frauds, because you're not a person who gives. You take, and someone who just comes and goes in your life won't see you as a taker because they haven't spent enough time to see your true person. But anyone who spends enough time around you is just going to leave you because they see who you really are, and you're really not that much. You're not a person that personally I want to invest a lot of time in. I might try to help you. I've helped several people who ended up being lost causes, that they're just really selfish in the end. And I thought I could help change them, but then I learned the hard lesson. So I don't blame them for me not being able to change them. That's me. I spent that
Wow.
time thinking I actually could change people. You can't change people unless they want to change themselves. That's why working with
Wow.
people with addiction is very hard. Because if you're working with someone with an addiction, and it doesn't need to be drugs, it could be like obsessed with work, obsessed with anything. If they don't realize or recognize that obsession's holding them back, you're gonna have a very hard time working with them. You can try, explain it to them, because sometimes it's just pointing it out because they're not self-aware. That just like I didn't see that I was over talking people in meetings until it was pointed out to me. I'm glad it was pointed out to me. So you need to give feedback and point things out. But if someone
Wow.
continues over time to make the same choices,
You-
then you need to stop trying. They're going to need to learn
Wow.
the hard way sometimes. And that's where the resilience comes in.
That's-
My son,
wow. So
I can already
accountability.
tell my son's going to be that kid that's going to look at the stove and want to touch it. I can already tell. I can tell him a million times, it's hot, it's going to hurt. I just think he's going to be that kid that touches it. I just see in him. I
But
just think he's going to be that kid that's going to be like,
I love how I love how you've incorporated your characters, a very balanced mix of your work character and your energy. All of this together, Sabrina. I cannot thank you enough for your time, my dear. And your beautiful perspectives, as beautiful as your words sound when you put them on your LinkedIn posts, is what I've found you as a human. And I say this with all true genuineness. Thank you so much for your time, and we would love to have you back towards the community, and probably if we could sometime work on collaborative programs for this part of the world, we would be most happy to have you come
It'd be
back and
super
speak.
interesting because I can learn a lot more. I don't feel like I actually don't take on clients a lot of the time from like Pakistan. Not because I don't want to. It's just simply I don't think because North American and European and Westernized just has a different corporate environment. So
It's true, but
I don't
but you know,
feel
but but I
so
would want to add something to this, Sabrina. Although the cultures and the mindsets are very different, there's a lot of learning, that comes with
yeah.
a new person's perspective. So when people like us are trying to bridge that learning gap for people here, our communities, when we are able to get through soul menders like you towards our communities, it gives them that extra added super perspective for them to know and learn from.
No, so that's
So
where
it
I
is
want to
very valuable.
collaborate to learn, but not necessarily
Yes,
advise in certain ways, just because how I would approach a
it
bad boss in Western culture is very different how I approach a
is
bad boss.
different. Yeah.
And,
But hearing out from you, your perspective is a great learning curve for everybody who's already, in that boat, probably sailed it already, or getting into one, or planning to get into one. So
yeah,
much value added. Thank you so much, Sabrina,
you're welcome.
for
Thank you for
your
having
time
me.
today. No, it was pure pleasure for us, and I hope you enjoyed speaking to us as well. And we'll share the comments and feedbacks with you in the due course of time when this video goes on air, and keep you posted as well. Thank you so much to our mindful community for watching us and listening to us. And we'll be back soon with another soul mender, but more so, we'll try and see if Sabrina has time to come back for our community. Thank you so much, Sabrina. We'll take
Thank you
care
for having
now.
me.
Bye bye. Thank you so
Bye.
much, my dear. Bye bye.